Hello and welcome to Every Horror Movie on Netflix, the show where we watch, review, and discuss every horror movie on Netflix. I'm Chris, back again with Patrick.
Hello.
And Steven.
Hi.
And it's a new year.
New year.
A new decade.
New decade.
We are now a decade-spanning podcast.
We are.
Yeah.
We've also been around for 2 years, which is exciting.
It's also not technically a new decade yet. I don't know if we can get into that argument.
Oh my god.
Listen, now
I'm just trolling. I'm just trolling.
Oh, thank God. Thank God. We're also into a whole new year of considering Spirit of J award nominees. So.
Oh, I guess that does begin with this movie.
Mm-hmm.
The Haunting of Molly Hartley.
The Molly of Molly Hartley. That's the show we're doing this week. I picked it out. You're welcome.
Yeah, so let's dig into that. Let's get into the psychology behind this pick a little bit. Why The Haunting of Molly Hartley?
You mentioned you were looking forward to some bitchy teen action.
Well, I mean, one of my favorite movies is Mean Girls. A lot of the little horror movies and concepts I come up with kind of revolve around high school setting. I don't know why. So make up your own psychology.
I wrote down in my notes, what was high school like for Chris?
Not great. The best I can figure is it was kind of the beginning of my, filmmaking career, so to speak. And I did a lot of like writing shitty, like 5-page movies in high school, almost none of which were actually made. And they would always involve what I had to work with, which was like high schoolers.
Write what you know.
But I don't think that's it. I think I just like kind of the Mean Girls thing and the blunt archetypes of social cliques that you get in a high school drama.
Yeah.
And the way the social spheres, the politics and the stratification and how those things play in a story is kind of funny to me.
So, but you're also known for learning as little as possible about these movies before you watch them. So, like, as you were going through Netflix, what grabbed you about this one?
It just said The Haunting of Molly Hartley, and the thumbnail was like girls wearing private school uniforms.
Mm. One of them had really big hair as well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It looked...
She's got like 80s Michelle Pfeiffer big hair.
Yeah, but it's clearly a movie from the mid-2000s.
Yes.
So like as I was like researching this before I watched it, I found that kind of intriguing too. I thought there's probably an element of camp to this movie.
2008 this film came out.
Well, actually, let me dive into my psychology a little bit more.
Yeah, please.
Because
let's peel back the layers of the onion that is Chris's brain.
Here's another layer to the onion. You know,
the parfait that is
one of
Chris's
my
brain.
favorite things in a movie is something ridiculous that's played with a straight face. And
I thought of that as I was watching this
camp.
movie.
And I think high school is kind of a campy experience in itself. Like everything about high school and the social cliques and the things that kids are concerned about in high school is pretty ridiculous.
It all seems so important at the time, but it's utterly meaningless. Kind of like life itself.
Right. Like, so it's like I work in the schools now. So like I go to the high schools and stuff and I walk around and it's almost impossible for me to discern like who the cool kids are and who the not cool kids are, so to speak. Because I'm like, these are all like little kids. And I go there as an authority figure now. And it's like...
But in their brains, there's like this whole hierarchy going on. And it's epic. It's
interesting
for them.
So I don't know.
So I want to we're back to, because this is a concept that's come up so many times, whether it's Avis Possessions or something else. You always return to this notion of ridiculous ideas played straight. And I never quite. Maybe you can define that better, because any horror movie to me, at least most of the horror movies we watch seem to involve ridiculous ideas that are played pretty straight. Like they seem to be taking themselves seriously. So how do you define that?
Maybe not ridiculous in terms of unlikely or uncanny, but ridiculous in terms of silly or comedic. I think that's what's so funny to me about like the Paul Verhoeven's movies. You know, he goes far into parody basically and satire, but all the characters are not aware that it's a funny movie.
Yeah.
You know?
True.
And that's always funnier to me than a comedy that's laughing at itself. And I don't know why.
But how are you? Is that what you were expecting with this movie? Like, how were you able to discern?
No, not at all.
Tagline? Okay.
I was just like, oh, let's see a possession movie set in a high school. Add that layer of drama to it. Yeah.
Well, so we should explain the setup of this movie, but first, I'm going to do my obligatory plug thing early instead of later in the episode where, you may have already turned off the podcast by the time that I usually say what I'm about to say, which is...
Are you selling stuff?
I'm selling stuff, baby. We are selling stuff.
What are you selling?
What are you buying? We have t-shirts. You may know this. You may not know this. We have beautiful Every Horror Movie on Netflix t-shirts. You can go on our website, everyhorrormovieonnetflix.com, and click the merch store link. They're beautiful. They look like the blown away classic logo from Maxell back in the day, except there's blood rushing out of the TV at a dude in a chair. They're very stylish. I'm wearing one right now,
He's the guy that wears the band t-shirt to the concert.
Yeah, you may be able to hear the shirt through the microphone. If not, adjust your stereos. Or just buy one of these fuckers for yourself. They're pretty affordable, and we get a little cut of the deal. So, It's cool. Follow us on social as well. EHMONcast, EHMONcast. We love you. Show us some love back if you feel so inclined.
And thank you to everyone who's already bought a shirt. You're helping us keep the lights on.
We've sold these fucking shirts all over the world, which continues to blow my mind. So, keep spreading the good word.
I've updated my LinkedIn to say I am in international textiles.
Yeah.
Looks better than podcasting.
What kind
I need to have you brush up my resume. I think that's pretty clever there.
What kind of in-mail have you gotten as a result of that?
I don't check my in-mail.
Good. All right, so fucking the Haunting of Molly Hartley, though.
Yeah, so I picked this movie and I was feeling good about it. And again, I also picked it because there was nothing really drawing me to it. I was just kind of my instinct about the title and the setting. And again, now that we're picking kind of our own movies, I still want to have that wild card factor where it's like, this is a movie I would probably never watch otherwise. That's just, I have no idea what it's about. It's just there. But as soon as I turned it on, I thought, uh-oh, I fucked up, guys. Because the first 30 seconds is like a drone photography, like over a forest.
But is it a drone? Because it's 2008.
No, I think it's
a helicopter.
Yeah, it's actually a helicopter shot.
Yeah, which made me think about how ubiquitous drone shots have become since then, and how that's absolutely going to be one of those like obnoxious stylistic ticks that we're going to look back on the 2010s for and go, oh god, yeah, that was a thing. So we have to give the movie credit, because starting your film with a drone shot in 2020. It's now 2020, I can say that, is kind of an obnoxious thing to do. But at the time this movie was made, I think it was 2008.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They actually put the damn thing on like a helicopter, so it took a little more.
It was as much of a trope in films back in 2008 as it is now. It's just easier to do now, and it looks cheaper.
Yeah, it looks worse.
Well, it looks terrible on Netflix because of when the forests are one of the like highest bit rate things.
And if you're beginning the movie with that, because I find that like the quality usually gets better after the first 5 minutes or so as it buffers. But if you're beginning with that much visual information, it's going to look like a fucking mess.
The streaming cannot get ahead of what's being presented to it. So this movie just looks like very pixelated for the first scene. But
it's almost as strong a start to a movie as starting a podcast talking about bitrate.
We're talking about the format. We're talking about presentation. I watched Martin Scorsese's Masterclass, over the holidays, and he talked...
Oh, you mean The Irishman?
No, he has put out 2 masterclasses, I guess. And he was talking about, presentation. You got presentation is as important as preservation and curation.
Were those I feel like those are the only 3 things Martin Scorsese talks about in his masterclass.
It basically is. It's just kind of, it's like going to a college class and the professor's an old, interesting guy, but he's just sitting on a stool in the corner telling you anecdotes about his life and the things that interest him, and not really teaching you anything about how to make a film.
Here's my question about the Martin Scorsese masterclass, though. Is it cinema?
No. Okay. But he has a lot of interesting takes on that. I won't get into that. The most interesting thing I learned is that black and white is color, and color is black and white. And I actually thought about that watching The Haunting of Molly Hartley.
Now, what does that mean?
So basically, his premise is, I'm explaining it poorly, to use color in a film or using color in a film should be deliberate. For a while, if you shot your film in color, the mere presence of color and the use of color elevated the picture compared to black and white. But also, black and white can be moody, and you can do things with it, especially now, where if you put your movie in black and white, you're usually doing it for a purpose.
Mm-hmm. Watchmen.
So nowadays, to shoot a movie in black and white is more of a color choice than shooting a movie in color if you're not planning to use the color to elevate the story.
I can get down with that.
So that's I don't want to pick on The Haunting of Molly Hartley, but a movie that doesn't really do a lot with color. Although I don't know, it kind of does. You get some blood on some white dress shirts. You get some golden hour lighting towards the end of the movie.
It's my golden hour.
Anyway.
Yeah, so now that we've taken that wizard's hand, so why were you...
Snake's hand, goddamn.
It's a wizard's hand. It's meme now. Meme is more than reality. Why were you feeling like you had made a bad decision in the first 30 seconds?
Just because it started with that aerial shot that I thought was a drone, and it started with some titles that were kind of in a weird font, and I was like, "Oh, this is low production value city. That looks very cheap."
Maybe I should drop this knowledge on you guys now, since we're here in my garage.
No one's gonna understand that.
It doesn't matter.
I love it.
I'm surprised Patrick didn't even understand.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
All right, whatever. Ty Lopez. This movie looks extremely cheap. It was made for $5 million. It was theatrically, sorry, I have a cold, listeners. It was theatrically released, and it made $15 million.
Wow.
Yeah, I had
no idea this movie was actually a hit. This
Good for them. Was it in wide release?
It must have been.
Wow. Good for them.
Very strange.
Well, Jesus Christ. Let's explain a little bit of what this is about, though. So, like, the prologue is there's a girl walking through the woods, following strings that are leading her to a cabin. They're like, keep going, almost there.
Very cute.
And then she gets there.
Cute.
The first of many big dumb jump scares in this movie. Her boyfriend's there. They're going to run away together. Then her dad shows up, and he's like, fuck no, you're not. Get in the fucking car.
Dad is wearing Zodiac Killer cosplay.
Oh, yeah, he's full Zodiac. And she's wearing, like, a sundress, and he's like, put some fucking clothes on, as if she's wearing, like, lingerie or something.
Yeah, she looks fine.
And we find out...
This begins a pattern of very overprotective fathers.
Had the big crush on her. Yeah. It's about to be her 18th birthday, and he seems to be sort of surprised that her 18th birthday is coming up. He's like, you're about to turn 18.
I can't let you turn 18.
And then suddenly the drive home turns into a suicide mission. He's trying to ram the car into something and kill her. He fails, but then sort of like the car stumbles out onto a road and then is just...
gets hit by a giant truck carrying straw bales.
Yeah, just like... I mean... I cackled when this happened. This was like almost on the entertainment level of Michael Myers getting hit by the fucking truck that then gets hit by an ambulance or whatever it is in Halloween, too.
It's kind of like how I laughed when our protagonist got hit by the car in Nails at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, it comes out of fucking nowhere.
This isn't the first or second or third movie we've watched for this show where there's just a truck accident out of nowhere in the first scene.
This one was funny to me, though. This was particularly funny to me because the dad is actively trying to crash the car and kill the girl and
he fucks it up.
Perhaps himself. And then seems like she's kind of like gotten them out of harm's way, and then they just get unceremoniously plastered by this truck. That was why it was so funny to me.
straw bale. I felt like I was watching Wallace and Gromit when like all the straw bales tumbled out of the truck. But whatever.
Then that's not enough. Then he slits her throat in the car after they've just been fucking plastered.
Or something. Yeah, he has a shard of glass and he stabs her somehow.
It's not on camera, but he has like a sharp implement that he finishes her off with. That all takes place in 1997, I think, and then we flash forward to the main events, our main character in the main events in
present day, meaning 2008, which is when you're making a movie, you got to be careful how you put your titles because you see present day. And when you've said it's 1997, I don't know. It can create an issue if you're watching it down the road and you don't know it was made in 2008.
I think you're supposed to believe it could be happening right now. Here.
It's an interesting point.
I did like the title that showed up under the first girl's name when she was in the cabinets. Like, I forget her name. It was like Lisa Martell, 1997, and that was all the information. It too. It was very The Irishman.
It was like The Irishman, and then especially because her dad looked like the Zodiac killer. I'm like, oh, are we going to be seeing several vignettes of girls who have gone missing or whatever,
and slowly learning more and more about the curse or whatever. I mean, immediately that was kind of like the classic case of Chris rewrites the movie in my head, or it was Patrick rewrites the movie in this case. But I was like, that would be an interesting movie if you follow like multiple people who, whatever. What's next?
Yeah, it begins like it's going to be some kind of like, funny you mentioned Zodiac, but like a Zodiac type procedural where there are like multiple murders being investigated against the backdrop of like a crime investigation. And now what we get, we start with one really dull girl being proposed to and then being killed by her father, and then the truck full of hay bales, and then we just follow another very dull girl for the rest of the movie.
Wait, has there ever been a horror movie that's done a Zodiac-like thing where there's like a curse or something like that that is being followed and investigated over the course of like multiple characters, multiple victims, multiple decades? Because
Saw.
No, a single
multiple
movie.
Decades? I don't know. That sounds a little bit like Terrifier?
In the shadow of the moon.
Or not Terrifier, Terrified.
Oh.
Sorry. I that was a totally unintentional.
I thought you were trolling.
No. Terrified, which is, I think, an Argentinian movie that Del Toro's remaking. But it's all like, it's like there's a curse upon this like tiny little like 2-block stretch of a neighborhood, but we see weird shit happening from different characters' perspectives, and they kind of like subtly cross paths with each other. That's sort of similar to what you're talking about.
I want a horror epic that follows like some evil. I'm writing this. I'm not going to say anymore because there might be intellectual property theft if I keep talking.
All right.
All right, let's get to our fucking main...
The connective tissue here, from the prologue is we soon meet our main character, Molly Hartley, who is a high school girl haunted by an experience that she had relatively recently, it seems, where she was stabbed with a pair of scissors by her mother in what we recognize as the same sort of pattern of behavior that we saw play out in the prologue.
Right, so I'm glad that you referred to that as the haunting, because that was kind of puzzling me even until the end credits. Like, what really was the haunting of Molly Hartley? Like, yes, she's haunted by an event from the past, but I feel like that implies like a supernatural haunting in the title, and it's a total misdirect for audiences looking for a typical sort of possession story.
That's interesting. I didn't even mean to describe it that way. But yeah, because you see the haunting of Molly Hartley, and it sounds, just based on the title, you think it's a possession movie.
You think it's another, like, girl strapped to a hospital bed, fucking herself with a crucifix type thing. That's what I assumed we were getting into.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Me too. And you know what? The parts of this movie I didn't like the most were the parts where I thought we were just doing the build-up to that, where she's hearing whispers and all that stuff.
Right.
That kind of boilerplate spooky stuff, but there's nothing really spooky going on stuff that we see in a lot of these movies where it's like, oh, the door closed. Oh, there's whispers. Oh, I saw a shadow. All that stuff. And I was like, all right, she's going to get possessed.
In a way, the title could be, because the title does work literally if you think about the way that she is haunted by an event that happened involving her mother, and she keeps having visions of her mother escaping from a psych ward or mental hospital of some kind to attack her. It could actually be kind of an ingenious title in that it is literally about a kind of haunting that Molly Hartley is experiencing, but it's not going to give you the same roller coaster ride that you would get from a traditional possession movie. Perhaps I'm giving the filmmakers too much credit here, but
yeah, they were just trying to sell the movie based on the popular concept of a possession movie. If you throw The Haunting of or The Exorcism of like just a generic name, people will show up inexplicably.
They will. Yeah. I don't get it. I mean, I don't know if I want to talk about this too much. I think I covered it in an earlier episode, but I think the possession subgenre might be my least favorite in horror. I find it just interminably boring. And I've never seen a possession film, except for one that I may mention later that I spoke with you about earlier, Patrick. I don't think I've ever seen a possession movie that made me feel terror. It's sort of like the nails thing. Like I don't like watching someone that's totally helpless to some other power. Anyway, we don't need to go down that rabbit hole. Let's get back to Molly Hartley, which is not a possession movie.
It's not a possession movie, but it was one of the things that began to frustrate me about halfway through it is I was unable to really figure out what the conflict was. Clearly, Molly Hartley is a girl who has problems. Basically, her mom tried to kill her. Her mom is now in a mental institution. She has a father, played by the poor man's Tim Roth, who wants to...
I was going to say the poor man's Jeffrey Feiger.
I was going to say the poor man's Steve Coogan.
But he's well-meaning, but she doesn't have a great relationship with him. It may just be normal teen angst, whatever, plus her, her stress, her trauma. And so she's being put into a new school, a prep school. And so then there's the stresses there where she has to make friends, fit in, not let anyone know her mom tried to kill her, while she's hearing these whispers and thinking she might be crazy. But I didn't really know what the central problem was or what the problem she had to overcome was, other than just kind of navigate those things.
That really bothered me too, because I didn't really have anything to connect to this girl on. Clearly she's going through some shit and I can relate to some of it, but she seemed to me just to be written as like a bundle of problems. There wasn't really anything likable about her.
And I don't know if she really had a personality other than she was kind of fragile and scared and traumatized.
Well, if she did, the actress didn't do it any justice.
Yeah. See, I don't know.
She's fairly comatose through the entire movie.
I don't know. I liked her performance, and I don't know. There was something about the character that did feel real to me. I felt like I was watching a real person. I didn't, spoiler alert to everyone, I didn't like this movie, but...
I don't think any of us like this movie.
Well, no.
I kind of like this movie.
Oh, really?
Oh, shit.
We'll talk about it.
Well, we'll get more into it later.
I didn't like this movie, but I would have liked it a lot less if not for feeling at least some degree of connection to this character. And maybe she was just kind of playing herself in real life. I don't know. But I felt like I was actually watching a distinct person who seemed real to me.
It was well acted. She seemed real. I just don't know if she seemed that interesting. And it seems kind of like an oxymoron, because if she seems real and it's well acted and she's got all these problems, which are kind of interesting, why didn't I find the character interesting? I don't know.
Well, she spends most of the movie just looking uncomfortable and having panic attacks and
reacting
bitching and moaning.
And not
that's
really
just kind
anything.
of exhausting, give me a bone, give me a little moment of her experiencing some kind of joy, so I know what she aspires to. When she resolves whatever these problems are that she's having.
This movie reminds me of Anguish.
Mm-hmm. That's come up a couple of times recently.
Yeah,
on the
I could
show.
kind of see that.
But just kind of having that kind of aloof teenage girl who's just moved and is haunted.
I thought you meant the emotion.
Oh, no. Ha, ha, ha.
I think I made that joke on the Anguish episode, and it probably landed just as well.
But there's things, there's subplots. So main character, okay. Supporting cast, I liked a lot.
Let's talk about the supporting cast of archetypes around her.
And that's the thing. I liked them, and some of them I was almost like, man, I kind of wish this movie had this character as the main character.
We've got Christian Bible thumper girl. We've got Hunk. We've got Hunk's bitchy girlfriend.
Ex-girlfriend.
Girlfriend / ex-girlfriend.
On and off girlfriend.
Side piece.
We've got quasi-goth bad girlfriend.
Who doesn't do a whole lot.
No!
She just randomly appears bursting through doors and shooting a side-eye.
And just being sort of a badass. She serves almost no function to the plot in the end. There's no function her character serves that couldn't be served by some other character, or that our lead, what's her fucking name?
Molly Hartley, the lead.
Boy,
wow,
yeah, that's
Punk
right.
girl's name.
That's right. Good. No, I was asking about Molly Hartley.
Asking Molly Hartley.
I was asking about Molly Hartley. Yeah. Boy, no more beer for me tonight. Where even
how do we bounce back from that?
There's no coming back.
Yeah, we got
from
these
that.
vague archetypes. None of them are given none of them are really all that unique or interesting, and yet I found myself charmed by a couple of them, partially because the hunk is a legitimate hunk. Glad this movie had a little eye candy in it.
The hunk was so, and this is something that kind of alienated me from Molly, because he hits on her the very first day and she kind of sees right through it and doesn't seem to want much to do with him. But then the next day, nothing has changed and she wants something to do with him. Maybe that's just high school.
Well, my big problem, and this is explained later in the movie, but my big problem for the majority of the movie was, why is he interested in her? Like, she doesn't give him anything. Like, she barely even responds to his advances.
He's got the big crush.
Yeah, but he like goes so far out of his way to like try and bring her into his life. And I mean, I'm not gonna, you know, everybody's beautiful in their own way, but like the two are not a very good match in my eye, just aesthetically. And that seems to be all that they share in this movie.
I don't know.
That is a bizarre critique, but okay.
I mean, she's not. Like, he looks like he was probably on the cover of Teen Beat when he was like 16.
She's not ugly by any stretch of the imagination, but she's not the kind of person that you see dating that kind of person in high school.
Yes, that's a more diplomatic way of putting it. They do not look like a good match, and it seems to me that they don't.
So
have
you're all saying that the hunk jock can only date, air quotes, pretty girls?
Yes.
I'm just saying this movie. I'm just saying this movie didn't like explain why he was into her, other than. She's like,
he's just a boy,
girl.
She's just a girl.
Hey, there we go.
Can I make it any more obvious? I really liked the Bible Thumper girl.
Me too.
And
I don't know why I also like felt a weird affinity for that character. I thought
she seemed very sincere and like, and I could not tell, and I kind of lost sympathy for her because they did eventually turn her into a South Park caricature of a Bible Thumper girl, but early on, I was like, okay, she's really into this Jesus stuff, but she's also really sweet and nice and reaching out to our person, and there's some dimensions there. And it wasn't like...
And she's like trying to... I wouldn't say she's like actively trying to convert Molly, but she's like leaving her door open, you know, like she's like letting her know, you know, I know you're going through some stuff, like, you know, having faith could help you. She's not like super aggressive about it.
She's giving her what was the title of that book? The like teen Bible that she gave Molly.
It's like the teens devotional Bible or something.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
And that's around the part where she started to lose me, and shortly after there, I kind of thought she became too one note. She was too always religion all the time.
Yeah, I will say she was like... maybe not 3-dimensional, but 2-dimensional.
Yeah, when it starts off and they're in the lunchroom, and she's like, they don't like me because I have a relationship with Jesus.
She didn't just seem like a joke.
I have the exact line here, which is not far from that, but I thought it was really funny. People make fun of me because I'm on scholarship, and they're offended because I have a close personal relationship with Jesus. Why would people be making fun of her because she's on scholarship? First of all, like that comes up several times in this movie. I don't really understand the politics of this private school.
So I mean,
not rich.
Not having been in that environment, I guess it's probably just a thing where it's like, oh, you know, you're on a, you know, your family doesn't have the money, kind of thing.
Okay,
yeah. That would be my guess.
But I found that line like funny, like in like a campy sort of way, but also endearing. You know, because the actress delivered it so sincerely.
I think it has a lot to do with the actress, yeah. Because when you read the line like that, it sounds kind of stupid.
Like if that were like if Divine delivered that line, it would be fucking hilarious.
Yes,
but because actress,
I want to see John Waters' Haunting of Molly Hartley.
I would rather he do something else, but
no, I thought it was very refreshing, as long as it lasted, that there was a character that religious in a movie that didn't seem to be a faith-based film.
I was worried it was going to be after a while.
I thought it was going to be a faith-based film too.
There's a scene at the end that we'll talk about in the spoiler room where I was like, wow, this is like bordering on Christian horror right now. And then it doesn't quite deliver on that, but it comes so close to like having... we'll get there. I'll get deeper into it in the spoiler room. But for a minute, I was like, am I watching a Christian horror film right now?
Right.
That's a first.
I have seen 2.
Really?
Made by my hometown film director.
Oh.
Yeah. Then there's the punk girl.
I love the phrase "my hometown film director." Like there's a single one, like
every
a designated director for your hometown.
It's an elected position.
I thought you were your hometown film director.
I'd have to make a film.
Yeah, true.
Instead of fucking around.
So what's really like I guess this is sort of one of my problems with this movie is like, what is like the thrust of the action from here on out? So Molly keeps having obviously she's having a rough time. She's relocated to a new school. She's got this trauma from the past. She keeps thinking that her mother has escaped from the mental institution and is trying to attack her. And we get some shitty jump scares with that. Her father, who's kind of overbearing.
There's so many fucking jump scares in this movie.
Who's kind of
none of them are effective.
One of them is one of the funniest I've ever seen, which is just an absurdly large roll of magazines and rubber band coming through a mail slot. And there's no way it could have fit through the mail slot in the first place. I backed it up.
My favorite was the dog when she's walking home from the party and just all of a sudden the dog jumps out. And
the most vicious dog you've ever seen. The dog, actually, it wasn't just someone's dog. It was like a Hollywood stunt. Fucking German Shepherd or something.
And you know what?
It has nothing to do with anything.
I don't know. I mean, we can probably get into this more in the spoiler room, unless you guys want to talk about it now. But my take on this movie is there is nothing scary about it. So they just had to put in some jump scares to try and keep you awake or on the edge of your seat.
Well,
there's almost nothing.
As every horror movie, I think, not every.
It's like not even paced in a way so as to be frightening.
There's a lot of pressure on a horror movie to have a few jump scares when it's this kind of horror movie.
Who's putting the pressure on? Not me. Kind of not me.
When's the last time you saw a horror movie in the theater?
I gotta think.
Because horror movies that get theatrical releases, you go there on opening weekend. It's largely like high schoolers and they all want to scream at the movie. And if they don't leave having screamed at the movie.
I get that. And this movie is definitely in that class. It's unfortunate that it doesn't seem to offer anything other than the jump scares. There are no memorable shots where there's just something creepy happening. Even fucking Blumhouse movies have a few of those.
Yeah, there's nothing in this movie that makes you want to cover your eye.
Well, no. And this is why, I mean, you make a good point about the teenagers. This is why this movie made $15 million. We were just talking about that. Because people go and all they want out of a fucking horror movie, at least a lot of people, is to be startled, is to jump.
The jump scares, I don't know, the jump scares, some of them were so bland and bad that they didn't even register to me as jump scares. And I watched this with the volume cranked up pretty loud too. There were only a couple where I was like, okay, they were clearly going for a jump scare.
I mean, they succeeded in startling me in the way that if Chris dropped a ton of, a brick on the floor right now, I'd be like, oh,
well, okay, if I were half asleep right now and Chris dropped a brick on the floor, I would jump. Otherwise, I wouldn't. In this movie, the only time I would have jumped, the only other time in this movie that I would have jumped is when I was so fucking bored with what was going on, and then somebody just randomly jumps through a window or a dog comes out of nowhere or whatever.
But we all aspire to your level of desensitization, Steven.
I would have loved to see this movie in the theater. I would have loved to see this movie in a theater on opening weekend. I'm shocked that it made $15 million. I don't know how big of a release it had, but
I'm so curious about that. I wish I had thought to gather more information.
I don't know. But I was interested, okay? I will say I was interested in where this movie was going. The supporting cast, I thought, was compelling enough that I liked seeing them interact. I really liked the scene where they went to the rich hunk's house party, and the punk girl and Molly went there, and then the punk girl kind of thought she got ditched and had her feelings hurt, even though some of that was a little forced. I liked it. I was like, where's this all going? I was curious about where it's all going.
Oh boy. So I have a couple thoughts on what you're saying there. I also was kind of in the middle for maybe the first third or so of this movie. I was like, this is not great, but there are some characters here that I'm sort of interested in. We'll see where this goes. But oh boy, that party scene did not do anything for me. It just, and we were talking about what's the driving, what's the thrust of the action. Basically, it's Molly's trying to figure out what's going on with these weird visions, and she's kind of trying to fuck the hunk.
Is she though? She seems so she wants to
half-heartedly
impress
trying to
him,
fuck the hunk.
But half-heartedly is great because she seems so reticent to even go to the party.
She seems like she'll just do whatever a character wants her to do at any given moment.
Yeah, but she'll look kind of upset about it in the moment too. But yeah, she's just kind of going along for the motions.
And the movie just sort of meanders towards some sort of resolution for both those points for basically the whole running time until the conclusion, which felt extremely rushed to me, and we're going to get to that.
We'll get to that.
Let's talk about that party scene.
I want to know where these parties, if these parties ever happen in real life, if they happen in high school.
You're too
why
old
have I
for
never
them now.
been invited to one?
Yeah.
And I want to have a house someday and have a party, and the theme of the party will be high school movie party. And we will have a party just like you see.
You want to be in the 1%, so you can throw one of these parties.
We'll all be 40 years old, but we'll have lights over the swimming pool and a DJ in the living room, and we'll break mom's vase, and we'll do all the shit.
Somebody will flush a package of frozen burritos down the toilet. Pull you away from making out with your crush right at the crucial moment. That party, I honestly don't know why it exists. Why is that scene even in the movie? What does it accomplish?
I had a theory when I was rewriting this movie in my mind, but I can't get to it till we go to the spoiler room.
Yeah, okay.
But other than these scenes of social dynamics, really, I guess the question is Molly going crazy? Is she like her mom? Is she psychotic? Is she schizophrenic? Whatever, because she's hearing voices in her head and all this stuff. And we know she's got an 18th birthday coming up. We know we saw the character in the prologue. So
we figure the same thing's going on here. Why else would they have shown us that?
And what's going to happen when she turns 18? And I guess that's a mystery.
Well, so
it's a mystery for us. It's not a problem for Molly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she we know a little bit more than she does. That this is not uncommon. That your 18th birthday might mean something even more terrifying than coming of age as an adult. But also a character that we haven't mentioned so far is the school guidance counselor, who kind of acts as her psychotherapist in a way, who's telling her everything's fine. This is all normal. I've had therapists like this where I've had severe panic attacks. I've gone and they're like, people have panic attacks. Don't worry about it. You know? That's sort of this woman's attitude on this. So that drove me a little bit crazy too, and provided some drama that is what Molly's experiencing, is it supernatural? Is it real? Is somehow her mom actually getting out of the hospital and sneaking up to her? Or is it all a figment of her imagination?
Well, and the guidance counselor also provided sort of this armchair psychologist, quasi-diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia for Molly. She's like, oh, your mom had paranoid schizophrenia, so basically you might too.
There's a genetic component.
There's a genetic component. That's right. Those are the exact words.
Let's talk about that for a moment. First of all, this movie is a trope in horror films that we've watched on Netflix, and I can't think of the other examples, but it's come up several times, that these movies don't understand that HIPAA exists, and that you can't just read a child their mother's psychiatric diagnosis that they got while they were in the mental institution without permission. Anyway, this is the kind of thing I key into since I hope to become a mental health professional someday.
Well, this was a fascinating subplot for me because when I was in college, I needed help scheduling classes. And so I went to the counseling office because when you're in high school, the counselor helps you do that. But it was actually a mental counseling office. And so I walked in there and I was like, hi. And they're like, do you have an appointment? I'm like, no. They're like, what are you here for? I'm like, well, I want to, figure out what the hell this minor is about. And they're like, oh, this is actually counseling for more personal issues. And I was like,
well, it's personal to me.
Little embarrassing moment.
Aww.
But it's funny. This
Did you have to get help for that later in life, recovering for that embarrassing moment?
No, but the counselor in this movie does double duty.
Yeah.
And that's kind of strange.
It's impossible.
Now that
now
that we've scheduled your first hour, let me diagnose you. Armchair diagnosis after talking to you for 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was wild.
Oh my God. Well, I personally feel like there's not much else we can really get into without talking about where this movie eventually leads us in the end.
Yeah, I feel like we should review exhausted the hauntings
and
here.
Where I wanted it to go. Oh well.
Yeah, stay tuned for another episode of Chris Rewrites the Movie.
Well, Chris, you picked this movie. Are you ready to review it?
Yeah, I'm going to give it a cue it, actually. Not a perfect film by any stretch of the imagination, but it did hold my attention almost all the way through, minus the parts where we're just hearing whispers in her head, which we've seen a million times. I thought the cast was good. The supporting characters were all interesting. I wish, I kind of wish this had just been like a 13 Reasons Why, where we're just spending time on the drama and we got the horror elements kind of as a dressing. But the
reference you just made probably spoke to a lot of people listening right now, but me and Steven were just like fucking crickets.
Eyes glazing over.
It's fine.
I haven't seen 13 Reasons Why.
Well, you don't need to. But there was a point in this movie where I was almost like, all right, this is enough. This is a screw it. But then it took a dog leg, and I was like, all right, this is exciting.
Did it give you a dog food moment?
I was just about to ask.
No dog food moments in this one, but I will say, again, put it in your queue. If you never watch it, you're not missing anything. But for a horror fan who wants to kill some time and see a few twists and turns and not be too bored compared to some of the other movies we've seen, check it out. Haunting of Molly Hartley. You could do worse. You could also do a whole lot better.
Wow.
That is the definition of a Q-in, really.
Patrick.
Wow. That's what I have to say about this. So here's an interesting fact about this film that I have not shared yet. I fell asleep 3 different times during this movie, which...
Damn, maybe you should go to the doctor.
Well, I mean, I didn't...
Maybe you should see the guidance counselor.
Maybe I should. I didn't sleep well last night, which there may be a genetic component to that. But I don't know. I think it speaks something to the quality of this movie as well. I don't know. Early on, as I said, I was willing to give this movie the benefit of the doubt. But as it went on, holy shit, it got boring. And then the ending was just absolute dog shit in my estimation.
Disagree.
I got up afterwards and walked around the house and just said aloud to myself in an empty house, that was garbage. So screw it. Maybe with prejudice. And you know what?
Himself. Maybe he's paranoid schizophrenic.
I may be. I actually contemplated the possibility that this may be the worst movie we've seen for every horror movie on Netflix. So put that in your pipe, smoke it, and I'll pass the pipe to Steven now. Oh, yeah. Inhale deep.
Yeah, thanks, Mon. Yeah, it's a screw it. I mean, this movie, just from the title alone, we just know that this is just kind of a cheap cash grab. The script is completely unimaginative. I will say there's some elements of camp in like the just rudimentary like sub 2-dimensional characters that populate this private school. It was amusing at times, but the only thing that kept me awake during this were the cheap, half-hearted jump scares, and mostly I found them more amusing than anything else. It's just awful. It's awful. I don't know what to say. I was shocked when I learned that this was actually released in theaters. That said, with the budget that it had, that's like the kind of budget of the cheap movies that get made now that just go straight to Netflix. So maybe it was ahead of its time in a certain regard. But yeah, screw it. Fuck it. Damn it to hell.
Damn. Well, I can't wait to maybe argue with you guys a little bit about the ending in just a few minutes here. But I guess that's it before we go to the spoiler room. So, listeners, if you want to watch the Haunting of Molly Hartley for yourself and make up your own mind, the time for that is now. Otherwise, follow us down to the spoiler room in just a second. We're going to spoil everything. Welcome back to Every Horror Movie on Netflix. We're back down here in the spoiler room to talk about The Haunting of Molly Hartley. All the secrets about what was going on.
All the hauntings.
With her mom, with her dad.
With her goth friend. With her Bible thumper friend. Yeah, what the fuck is going on? So, like, at a certain point...
At a certain point, shit starts happening. And that point
arguably
is about 25 minutes from the end of the film.
Yeah, I'd say that's about right.
Yeah, I remember I checked the time at a certain point and it said there were 35 minutes left. I'm like, holy fuck, I'm 2/3 of the way into this and I feel like almost nothing has happened. Like, what? So
what happens after we tread some water with Molly and all of her anxieties and her getting to know all her high school friends a little bit? Mom shows up, and this time she's not a hallucination, even though I thought it was a dream sequence the entire time.
Oh yeah, this is right after the giant bundle of magazines jump scare that I was talking about.
And Mom tries to kill her again.
Yeah.
And then gives her an exposition dump where we learn what's going on.
Yeah.
And basically Molly's parents had
miscarriages.
Yeah, they had the miscarriages, at least one, and they were pregnant with Molly, and there was a difficult birth, and Molly was actually, I think, stillborn.
Well, she was born too soon. They were like out to dinner or something at a restaurant.
She just popped right out.
Popped right out in the bathroom.
In the bathroom.
Popped right out before dessert.
They're in the grimy
Gotta
bathroom.
make room.
But we see a flashback where they're on the floor of this grimy bathroom in like a Five Guys, and Molly's dead.
Normally that's where babies are conceived, not delivered.
And apparently like a witch showed up and was like, hey, we can give you 18 years of happy, healthy baby, but then the devil's going to take her.
Yeah. And I got for like half a second, I was like, ooh, I'm getting Dark Song vibes here.
Yeah.
Lady True vibes.
Or Lady True, yeah.
So all that was fine with
Watchmen
me.
fans.
And then so she's like, I'm sorry, we fucked up, but what else am I going to do? I have to kill you for your 18th birthday. So she tries to kill Molly again. Molly throws her over the stairs and kills her.
And this was another moment where I cackled because
I cackled too.
That stunt person does like a full backflip on their way from the second floor down to the main floor, and it's so funny.
So I'm like, okay,
so
I'm awake now. You got my fucking attention, movie. I was not expecting any of this shit. Let's see what you do with it. Then she goes to see her Christian friend who works out of the Christian Learning Center or whatever. And
right, because she suddenly decides it's time to accept Jesus.
Which seems a little insincere.
Yeah.
She's basically, it's like...
More than a little.
Yeah. It's like, you're
She's
not
sorry. Well, what else is she going to do?
You're sorry you got caught.
Go for some Jesus. Vitamin J, baby.
So she goes to get her vitamin J. Jesus Girl takes her to her church. And I thought this was interesting, too, because usually when we're talking possession, we're talking Catholic. And this girl, it's not really explained what her faith is.
She's some born-again evangelical shit.
Yeah, but it's like a evangelical Protestant tradition. I was like, okay, let's see a possession story through this frame. Okay.
Before we even get to what happens, I have to say, while I was watching this, this is the first time in the movie I felt a little bit of suspense. And I wasn't, because I like the Jesus Freak girl's performance, I knew that it was her performance and not a fault of the film, where she seems suddenly like a little bit reluctant to save this girl, save Molly. And like when they walk up to the church and the church looks very foreboding and Jesus Freak like kind of stops.
There's a sense that she's aware of her own bullshit and she's not sure if she can really help Molly in this situation.
Yeah, and I didn't really know where that was going to go. Well, it turns out, she goes to baptism, which also, like, I would call this like a backdoor baptizing ceremony because, first of all, I don't think that just any random member of the clergy can perform a baptism. Congregation, I'm sorry, can perform a baptism.
Yeah, they're in like a YMCA pool.
And I could not tell if this is actually a church and if these kinds of rooms actually exist or if this was some compositing going on.
Because
you've never been to the pool at your church before?
Well, there's a little tiny waiting pool behind the altar. There's like a window behind the altar and there's a little pool back there.
Yeah.
I don't know. It looked like I was going to say a real set, but obviously that implies that it could have been constructed for the movie. I don't know. It was weird. I liked it.
It doesn't matter. I was like, okay, I believe that this is here, whether it's something that's in the real world or not. I guess. I mean,
it's a very Nicole Byer nailed it reaction. It was weird. I liked it.
Let me put it this way: I've never seen a photo of anyone's baptism where it took place in like a little recessed like hot tub behind the altar inside a building. Yeah, but that's not to say.
Churches have all kinds of unusual architectural features.
Have you been inside a mega church before?
That's a whole other wizard's
church.
hand there.
I have, but just speaking to Patrick's point, like churches are fucking weird, especially like these weird, like non-denominational churches.
The blurb for this episode should definitely include that we discuss architectural features of churches because, that's going to pull listeners in.
So I wonder what this room would be called. Like, I know what like a vestry is and like some of the church terminology. I wonder if there's like a term for that little pool.
Aqueduct. I don't know.
Well, Molly gets aqua fucked back there.
Jesus spa.
This was my favorite part of the movie, and this is where I'm going to push back on you guys saying there's no imagination in this movie.
No, this scene was great.
This is great, and I was like, oh, really? Are we going to keep this energy up?
Really?
Yeah, because what happens is our hero is about to be baptized by Jesus girl, who's been nothing but a saint, so to speak, for the entire movie,
so to speak,
and as she's like baptizing her, she's like, oh, by the way, bitch, I gotta drown you because you're the devil. And like tries to just drown her in like the baptismal pool. And I was screaming. I was like, oh, this is amazing. And then our hero ends up fighting back, cracking her head, or the Christian girl's head, and the Christian girl dies. And now I'm like, okay, it's been like 2.5 minutes, and Molly has already like accidentally murdered 2 of the like 5 characters in this movie. Is she just gonna go through the whole town? Like,
who's next?
I feel like for me at this point it was too little too late. I was desensitized like Steven to a jump scare, and I was like, that's a thing that happened.
For me, this is what I wanted. I'm tired of this stupid ass jump scares. I want to see Molly. I want to see some action. I want to see Molly do something. And it was totally surprising that the Jesus freak turned out to turn against her in the end.
Shocking.
It's totally shocking, at least like for this movie, which is pretty fucking sleepy until then.
Yeah, so
it did not shock.
Okay, so
what did you think was going to happen? Did you think she was just going to get baptized and everything was going to be okay?
I don't know. Maybe I was just so checked out at that point. The movie had given me so little reason to care at that point that I was like, okay, she's decided to kill her. Whatever.
All right.
Oh, I didn't think the baptism was going to work. And
I didn't either.
I thought the Christian girl may very well die, but I certainly did not think the Christian girl was actually going to murder her for Jesus. Mm-hmm. And that was hilarious. Great scene. The Christian girl is front running the Spirited J Award.
So
2020.
Wow.
Well, it's the first movie of 2020, so let's calm down.
She's leading like Bernie is leading.
She's leading
2020.
Like Biden. Yeah.
Oh, sure. No, so, and this was one of the points where I fell asleep, actually. So I watched this scene twice because I fell asleep during it, woke up in the middle of it, and was like, okay, I guess I should watch this shit again. And no.
That sounds like a personal problem. This was the most thrilling scene I've seen in a bit.
Steven problem.
It does.
Which I did not have with this movie.
Yes, and I feel like we should reveal the most shocking spoiler of this entire spoiler room.
I have an attention span.
Which is that Steven watched it all in one sitting.
No, let's not draw too much attention to it.
Okay.
So
I watched it in 3. Well, I took 3 naps, so 4 technically.
Fair for this film. I'm surprised I didn't.
From there, and this is where the details get hazy for me.
You should have tried it. You might have enjoyed it even more.
For some reason, she ends up calling Hunky Dude, who's rich with the big house where he had the house party.
What's his name, Joe?
I don't know.
He would be called Joe.
Fucking
something
Joe.
Generic like that.
And so he picks her up and takes her to his house, and he's like, hey, my dad's got a shit ton of cash. We're going to get on a plane to anywhere. We're going to start a new life, baby. And long story short, Joe, we'll call him, the hunk guy, I guess is a Satanist. The school counselor is a Satanist. She ends up going in the house and gets trapped, and they bring her dad in, and dad's like, no, kill me, and maybe you won't turn into Satan. But she won't do it. She tries to stab herself. Everyone's in on it.
Well, yeah, because the twist is that, like, Joe and the counselor and everybody have basically just been, like, waiting it out for her to turn 18.
Right.
Which felt oddly appropriate to me. It almost, like, verged on a legitimate creative decision to me, because I felt like this movie had just been like waiting out my fucking attention span. And I was like, oh, this is the entire point, is everybody's just kind of like been waiting for her to turn 18 so that they can
fuck her,
devilize her. I mean, I don't know. Who knows what their intentions were?
I've seen the movie and I don't really know.
what their intentions were.
Yeah. Well,
they're all part of a cult. The counselor was actually the witch who made the pact to begin with.
Which, so ludicrous.
Whatever. So basically, she just the clock strikes midnight and she becomes a Satan, and we're like, oh shit, what's that gonna? What's the result of this?
Well, then we cut to a fucking pop punk song. She's valedictorian. She delivers a bland speech. She gets in a car with the other Satan people and drives off, and that's it.
We have no idea.
There's no creepiness. There's no forebodingness in this scene at all.
You're like, oh god, like, and maybe that's what they're trying to say. Like now that she's the second coming of Satan or whatever on Earth.
Why didn't they?
She delivers a valedictorian speech that has, at best, slightly alarming undertones.
I didn't even think so.
I didn't even think so either. What are you talking about?
Well, there's something in there about how there's kind of a generic line where she's like, we are going, like, speaking to her graduating class, we are the ones who are going to change the world or something. And it's delivered with a kind of like, oh, like, we're going to, like, the Satanists are going to fuck up the world. But again, I mean, it's telling that neither of you guys even, like, registered that as
because
such.
Pop
like, it
has in the background. It's a bright, sunny day.
It's like fucking
her performance
the
is
OC
just fucking comatose as it was the rest of the movie. Like, her face just doesn't register emotion.
She seems like the same person, but happy. And it's like, so what's the problem?
Right.
There's really no reason for alarm.
Hail Satan.
Other than we know that the devil is bad and that she's apparently turned sour by the devil. Well, we do get a scene before that where her dad is now, like, he's institutionalized because he probably went to the police and the doctor and was like, hey, my daughter's a Satan, and they thought he was crazy.
Well, and if the town elite are all Satanists, they can easily have him put away.
Yeah, and so question. Molly seems to have the opportunity to, like, vouch for dad or try to reach out to him or try to get him out of being committed for the rest of his life, and she's like, nah, he's not my dad anymore. Bye, see ya. So,
oh god, and we should talk about, I mean, this is a bizarre moment in this whole thing where the hunk and the counselor reveal themselves to be Satans is well, Satan is now like a
Xerox.
There's this whole moment where once they've revealed themselves and Molly is at the last minute trying to stop this process, she starts praying to God, as the Bible thumper has told her to. And the counselor is like, oh, you think God's going to save you? God, there's some line. It just feels like the setup for, like, God himself to intervene. Right? Like, this feels like this is going to take a hard right turn.
No, like the high school drama, it felt very small potatoes. It was like, whatever kind of Satan she's going to be, it's probably not a big deal in the larger scheme of things.
No, it felt like the script itself was setting up for some kind of religious theme in that moment. And I was like, I thought it was going there, and I was about ready to be screaming about that.
Well, I wish something had happened.
Me too.
Instead, they threaten her dad, and the counselor is like, well, you could kill your dad, and that might invalidate this whole pact. Instead, which is, why would the counselor say that? I guess to hasten her descent
the counselor
in civility.
knows that, like, killing her, she says maybe. She uses the word maybe, like, maybe that'll save you, but she knows it won't. She's just the counselor's just having fun. Yeah. She's having fun.
And then Molly stabs herself.
It doesn't work because she's Satan now. It's already, we've heard the clock chime like 47 times at this point. She's been 18 for like 3 minutes.
It's all, man, it's all just, oof.
Bad. I wish there had been a theme. Anything.
Something
that, whether, I mean, her stabbing herself, I don't know what it means in relation to the rest of the story. No. If she'd killed her dad, I don't know what that would have meant in relation to the rest of the story.
No. And what does it mean for this character that now she's Satan and she's okay with it?
And now she's a valedictorian.
She's a Satan.
I mean,
Satan, I'm sorry.
If I wanted to...
And Satan.
If I wanted to stretch and really give it benefit of the doubt, I would say maybe... Like, you know, her whole thing has been she didn't fit in at school very well, and now she's embraced Satan and she's the valedictorian. Are they commenting on high school politics?
No.
Private school politics? About how influence and money will get you anywhere you want to go?
I don't know.
No, it's not at all. Like, it didn't even bother to think that far. I have a couple of questions, though. One, knowing how this movie ends, do you think any of the setup works as foreshadowing for what happened on the night she was born, when the witch made the offer, right?
Like the setup. What do you mean by the setup? Like
the setup to her becoming Satan, and this big reveal that everyone in this, all the important figures in this school know from the beginning of the movie who she is and what she's going to become. Does that make sense of any of her interactions with those characters? I think, one, it makes sense of the lifeless romance and attraction that Joe seems to have for her, and we're just going to keep calling him Joe, because he's just trying to keep her close because he knows that she's going to be Satan.
Yeah.
And so that for me makes sense of the fact that like there doesn't really seem to be any real mutual attraction between the two of them for the entire movie. It kind of makes up for the really just bad acting and screenwriting for everything that leads up to.
Is this movie a secret success?
No, it's not at all.
No, I like that interpretation. I think that's probably what they were going for.
I think it's extremely generous to say they were going for anything, but I'm glad you guys are extending them the benefit of the doubt there.
Doesn't make it a better movie. I'm 50-50 on it.
I thought this movie was going to be genius for a second, because before, when she got back in touch with the hunk guy, I said, okay, what do we know about the hunk guy? We know he and his family are extremely rich. That's the whole reason we had this huge production value high school party at their mansion. Right? Like, there's no reason for that scene to exist and for them to have spent all the money shooting that, other than it communicates very clearly that this guy's loaded. And there's even lines of dialogue about it. Oh, I didn't know you were rich. Oh, I hope you don't think any differently of me, etc.
I don't know about it being huge production value, but I will say that I was impressed that it felt more or less like a real party, and people actually seemed to be dancing to real music. At the very least,
shot at a mansion.
It was a much better party than the one in Dead Awake.
Oh my God, yes. That was probably the most sparsely attended party in any film we watched on here. Yeah, and I do at one point, though, at every one of these parties, the kind of fish out of water character has to say, "Man, this party's crazy," which Molly did at one point. But I thought, like, you know what? Of all the parties we've seen in these movies, especially. Was it American Poltergeist 2 that had the pool party where there were like 5 people?
One of the Poltergeists.
I think that was the first one.
Was it the first one? It looked close enough to not a party that I think actually has ever existed of this kind, the high school party that Chris wants to throw someday. But it felt authentic enough.
We should, when we have a Patreon... This should be one of our Patreon rewards.
Get an invite.
Is the high school, invite to the EHMON high school party.
Yeah, we'll just crowdfund it.
Yeah. $5,000 gets you an invite to the EHMON high school party. You and 15 of your closest EHMON fellow fan friends.
Great. Sounds perfect.
This assumes that people who listen to our podcast have friends. Let alone friends who are fans.
We're their friends.
Well, no, that's the point, is that their only friends are fellow fans of the podcast. So we get them together and then they all have friends. Also, by the way, listeners, we love you. We know you have friends.
We do. We're just fucking around.
We're just trolling you. Around. Troll us back if you need to.
I thought there was an interesting idea there where maybe we have a dad who made a deal with the devil. His wife tried to kill his daughter and got institutionalized, and so he moved his family away from all that to a new town, a new school that happens to be a town where everyone else has made a deal with the devil. We kind of got that, and it wasn't satisfying.
Yeah, okay, so here's another question.
This guy's rich. What if he's made a deal with the devil too? And that everyone here is and there's probably like a Stephen King story about this, because it seems like a very simple concept.
But I was thinking, like, okay, how interesting would it be if, like, because they don't move towns. Like, they stay in the same town. She just goes to a different school.
That was unclear to me.
I'm pretty sure she just goes to a different school.
Okay.
Because she's getting like bullied and harassed for everything that happened, and she's having these panic attacks. So like, okay, fresh start. But I was like, it would be more interesting if, like, he's like, you know what? I don't believe in this devil shit. We're going to get as far away from here as we can. We're going to have a fresh start. And they happen to move to a town where he cannot keep it a secret anymore, because it's, like, clear that, like, everybody else in the town has, like, some relation to this cult, or they've made deals with the devil themselves. And he's, like, trying to fight to protect her from their influence. That would have been more interesting. A question I have while watching this movie is, okay, it's clear that this is a thing that happens in this universe, that the witches intervene as children are being miscarried and offer this pact with the devil. Do they offer other kinds of pacts? How many people in the town have made pacts with the devil? How many Satans are there in this town?
The
mind reels.
I just want Jerry Seinfeld to deliver the entire monologue that you just did. How many Satans are there in this town?
Is the guidance counselor Satan? Is she a version of Satan?
So again,
what's the deal with Satan?
I can't quite say there was no imagination in this movie. There was some.
It's not enough. It wasn't focused enough. Yeah, I'll say that.
Yeah, room for improvement for sure.
All right, well.
All right, so what are we watching next week?
It's Patrick's turn to pick what we're watching next time. What are we watching next time, Patrick?
All right, so let me first get into a little bit of the philosophy behind my pick. There are some quote-unquote good horror movies on Netflix right now. I was looking through the listing, and I was like, oh, that looks exciting. That's supposed to be a good movie. I'm into this. Okay. But I think we have to keep delving into a little bit of the muck of Netflix horror as we go along.
Didn't we just do that?
Well, we did. But I support continuing to do that. But I'm playing Resident Evil right now, and Resident Evil Afterlife is on Netflix. I've never seen any of these movies. Have you seen any of these movies, Chris?
I've seen the first one.
I saw the first one in theaters.
Okay. I haven't seen any of them. I don't know where this falls in the chronology.
Probably doesn't matter.
And it probably has nothing to do with the game that I'm playing right now.
Nope.
But I'm just like, let's go. I want to check out this franchise I've never seen before. Drop me into the fucking middle of it.
Resident Evil Afterlife.
That's right.
That's, all right.
I bet it's going to be about as fun as watching you play Resident Evil while we were getting set up today.
Rude.
Can't wait.
Are there other Resident Evil movies on Netflix?
No, there are not. I mean, even if we wanted to watch others that like gave us some context on Netflix, we could not.
No, I actually just texted my friend last night with a picture of Resident Evil Afterlife on Netflix, and I said,
"Oh,
I'm about to watch this whole series based on this image alone."
I can't see it.
The thumbnail picture.
I need something to get me excited because this sounds fucking miserable.
This guy wearing sunglasses in the chair, who's a character. He's a recognizable.
I mean, it looks very Matrix. It looks super Matrix.
He is a recognizable character from the video game series.
Okay.
But maybe the worst looking adaptation I could imagine of him. So I'm fascinated.
There's like fucking 6 or 7 of these movies.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. Yeah. Oh,
all right.
Fuck.
Cool.
Well,
all right.
See you guys in a couple weeks.
Afterlife. We're doing it in a couple weeks.
We're doing it.
Turn that frown upside down, Steven.
See, what's going to happen is you two are both going to be geeking out about Resident Evil. I guess I'm going to have to start playing these games.
No, have you never played any of them?
No, I don't know anything about the mythology.
So until recently, I had not played any of them. I'm playing Resident Evil 4. I know nothing. Like, I'm a fucking child, a babe in the woods, wandering around this fucking castle. Before, while Chris was setting things up, I was playing, and some character showed up. I was like, who the fuck is this? Is this who Mila Jovovich, however you pronounce her name, is this who she plays in the franchise? And Chris is like, no, she's from the past games. Don't worry about it. So, I am only slightly less ignorant than you.
No, I don't know a whole lot. I mean, I'm just, as someone interested in gaming and in horror, I'm aware of the Resident Evil franchise. I've played a couple of the games all the way through. I've played halfway through one of the other games. I know the basic themes and characters at the 35,000 foot view.
So I think you're going to be our spirit guide
I'll
on
be
this
your
one,
spirit guide
Chris.
the
You
best
can
I
lend
can.
us the perspective.
But don't confuse me for a Resident Evil expert.
Yeah,
And
we might have to try and find a Resident Evil expert for next episode.
I could get one. Patrick, I just made him play Resident Evil 4 because it's one of my favorite video games of all time.
And specifically, you made me play the Wii edition.
You could play. We'll talk about that later. But Resident Evil 4, I think Resident Evil fans would say it's quite disconnected from the rest of the series, or at least especially the classic mythology of Resident Evil 1 through 3, which kind of kept the same universe and tropes that I think the movies are based off of.
Well, I was primarily puzzled because obviously the Resident Evil movies, I know, have a female protagonist.
Yeah.
Whose name is Alice, I think.
Yes.
And obviously the protagonist of the game is...
Well, Alice is a unique invention for the movies, and Leon, who is the star of Resident Evil 4, is in Resident Evil 2. There's also another playable character in Resident Evil 2 who's a woman. The protagonists of the Resident Evil series shift. You never play as the same character for like more than one game.
Mm. Well, we should probably like chop this entire discussion out and put it at the beginning of next episode.
Leave it.
I'm joking. But in the meantime, as usual, follow us, EHMON Cast, EHMON Cast. Go buy our t-shirts. merch store link on the website.
Show us a picture of you wearing it looking sexy.
Every horror movie on Netflix.com. You can
Every horror flick.
Every horror flick. You can contact us and send us your pics of your shirt there. And yeah. Oh, and also review us. Rate us, review us. That helps people discover the podcast.
Share us with your friends.
Yeah. Steal your friend's phone. Unlock it. You know their code. I mean, don't fuck around.
You know that nerdy guy who's just covered with Cheeto dust all over his hands all the time. Whenever you go to his house, it smells like stale pizza, and he's just playing Resident Evil 2, and he won't put it down to even greet you at the door. Reach out to that guy and say, hey, you know what? They're doing Resident Evil Aftermath.
Just listen passively.
Time.
Just play it with the sound off while you're playing video games, because it's going to help these guys out, meaning us.
Yeah. I feel like that's a gross and gruesome stereotype of our target audience. But to steal your friend's phone, open their podcast app, type in every horror movie on Netflix, subscribe them, and also rate and review the show 5 stars for them.
And if you can't figure out the code, I learned a trick from the movie Wounds on Hulu. Just hold the phone up to the light just so, and you can see the fingerprint patterns. And fuck around, and you probably figure it out in like 3 tries.
That's devious.
Take their unconscious finger and press it to their Touch ID.
Yes.
Go on the podcast app.
Hold it up to their face while they're sleeping.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We want 5 stars by any fucking means necessary.
Kill whoever you have to.
Go and do your duty. For every horror movie on Netflix, I'm Chris.
I'm Patrick.
And I'm Steven.
See you next time.